with me? Do you feel the same? Am I only dreaming? Or is this burning an eternal flame? Say my name. Sun shines through the rain. The whole life so lonely.
You know what that is right there? That right there is the eternal flame of hope, the eternal flame of optimism. I want you to channel your inner underdog and believe that some way, somehow, despite the odds being stacked against them, that the Kitchener Rangers will find a way back in their playoff series versus the Windsor Spitfires. It is almost a mountain, though, at this point, to climb after a loss last night. More on that in a moment. But the song, of course, is Eternal Flame from the American all-girl group The Bangles, which went to number one, not just in the United States, not just in the UK, but also in Australia on this day back in 1989. It also happened to be the biggest selling single of 1989 in Australia. Eternal Flame by the Bangles, number one on this day 36 years ago. This day, the 15th of April, a Tuesday morning. Welcome to the program. Always great to have a chat with you. And as you know, the moment we begin the show every morning, our phone lines open so that you can be a part of the conversation. And Alan is an early bird, so we'll go right to the phones and say good morning to Alan. Hello, sir.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Ranger loss.
Oh, I'm feeling it this morning still, Al. I really am.
I
yes,
bet.
sir. Yes, sir.
Anyways, I have two things.
Okay.
One thing is this election is really worrying me because I'm afraid that the clown will get voted in.
Who's the clown?
Who do you think is the clown?
The guy with the name Carney?
No.
Oh.
Definitely not.
Okay.
The other clown.
The other clown.
Well, Carney isn't a clown.
Well, I just think of Carney as somebody that works at a carnival. That's what I thought you meant by clown. So you think
No.
okay.
No. The other a-hole.
Well, okay. Well then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he scares me. He does.
Pierre Poilievre scares you.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
because he's got no policies. And if he gets elected, Canada should just turn their backsides to the south and say, okay, bend over and say, okay.
All right. Well, it's interesting because Pierre Poilievre did bring forward a policy yesterday that we're going to be talking about in the next 5 or so minutes. And I'm wondering why it's even controversial. So maybe we can learn something there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Look at all the policies that he's proclaimed so far.
Yeah.
In opposition, he voted against all of those policies, basically.
Okay.
And now he brought them back. And do you think he's going to reintroduce those policies? I don't think so.
All right, Alan. Listen, I appreciate the passion and the fact that you're invested already. I find your language interesting with the clown to the a-hole. But hey, that's okay. We're passionate about our politics. So a couple of things. One, just after 9:30 this morning, our conversation will be about the unspoken ballot box issue. It might pertain directly to Alan, just guessing from the sound of his voice. So you might want to stick around for that. And yes, I will get into a policy promise unveiled by Pierre Poilievre yesterday that I find curiously controversial. I don't understand, quite frankly, how it can be, but we'll talk more about that after our first break. Right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's get on with that Farwell Show 5 this morning. Number one, Canadians. That's us. We got a break on inflation in March, even without a tax holiday. As Statistics Canada says, the pace of price increases slowed last month. StatsCan says the annual inflation rate was 2.3% in March, down from 2.6% in February. StatsCan says a drop in the price of gas helped ease prices for motorists last month. The agency also says Canadians were paying 12% less on airfare last month compared with a year earlier. Number 2, that is Madame Speaker to you.
I'm so humbled that I'm the first woman in provincial history. And I had a lot of people put their faith in me to help them through the next 4 years. But to be the first woman is incredible.
Hamilton MPP Donna Skelly has been appointed Ontario's 43rd Speaker of the Legislature and the first woman ever to hold the role. Skelly takes over for Ted Arnott, who retired after 7 years as Speaker. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. The federal Green Party's housing plan will be unveiled this afternoon in Kitchener. And incumbent Kitchener Centre candidate Mike Morris will deliver the news alongside other local Greens. We're talking about housing on our show this morning at 11:30. Number 4, most of the country's main party leaders are in Montreal today campaigning and preparing for their 2 election debates in the city. The French language debate is set for tomorrow, followed by the English one on Thursday. Meantime, the Federal Debate Commission has released its list of topics. They include affordability and the cost of living, energy and climate, leading in a crisis, public safety and security, and tariffs and threats to Canada. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, it was an embarrassment in officiating last night at the Memorial Auditorium as referees Drew Jackson and Darcy Burchell did a disservice to their striped uniforms during the Rangers Spitfires game. Kitchener's assistant coach Brad Flynn wasn't sure how Windsor had 6 power play opportunities, including a 5-on-3, while the Rangers had just 13 seconds of power play time.
Most referees in the 3 CHL leagues that I've been in, they come over and they'll talk to their head coach and let them know what the calls are. And typically, especially in the playoff games, you never see this many penalties, especially so lopsided. I'm not sure if they just came from the cathedral over there and they're a bunch of altar boys and they don't do anything.
Oh, those altar boys from Windsor did win the game 6-3 last night, and now the Spitfires lead the series 3-0. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, maybe Alan wants to weigh in on what he heard from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre yesterday. It was a policy announcement about keeping murderers in prison for life. If they take a life, they serve a life. And this is somehow controversial?
Every life matters, and someone who takes multiple lives should be held accountable for each one. That's why I'm announcing today a Conservative government will reintroduce and pass the law that empowered judges to impose consecutive sentences for killers convicted of multiple murders. The worst mass murderers should never be allowed back on our streets. For them, a life sentence should mean what it says, a life sentence. They should only come out in a box.
Is that controversial to you? I don't find it controversial in the least, but I'm always here to learn, and my ears are open to hear from you. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre pledged yesterday to keep people who kill multiple people behind bars for life. And this has somehow come across as controversial.
Every life matters, and someone who takes multiple lives should be held accountable for each one. That's why I'm announcing today a Conservative government will reintroduce and pass the law that empowered judges to impose consecutive sentences for killers convicted of multiple murders. The worst mass murderers should never be allowed back on our streets. For them, a life sentence should mean what it says, a life sentence. They should only come out in a box.
Does that sound reasonable or unreasonable to you? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. In fairness, where this gets a little bit murky is the idea that the notwithstanding clause would have to be invoked in order to change this legislation. And what Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Federal Conservative Party, is reacting to is the sentence handed the man who killed 6 people at a mosque in Quebec City back in 2017. The Supreme Court ruled in that case that the killer, who took 6 lives could not be forced to wait more than 25 years for a parole hearing. It doesn't mean that he would get out, in fairness, but still, not even waiting more than 25 years for a parole hearing, I mean, he could get out, was deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. I find it really curious. You took 6 lives in cold blood. I didn't find anything controversial whatsoever in the statement made and the pledge made by Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre yesterday. Let's go to the phones and hear from you. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. What I'd like to talk about is this, the Supreme Court overriding the consecutive life sentencing. If I was Poilievre, I would say, I'm going to invoke the notwithstanding clause, and then I'm going to ask for a constitutional amendment to allow this. I think that's the best way to handle it, by passing a constitutional amendment. I believe life is life. It is a reasonable compromise versus a death penalty. And for the most egregious of killers, it should be a life sentence. That's my thoughts, Mike.
All right, Mike, I appreciate that call. And listen, I find it difficult, I really do, to understand how 6 lives is not relative to 6 consecutive life sentences, 1 for every life taken. What we do in Canada is run those sentences concurrently, which means you serve 1 life sentence. Basically, you're serving all 6 at one time. And I don't know that frankly should be the case. I don't find this altogether controversial. Jeff is on the phone with us. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, hi, Mike. First off, the whole multiple life sentences, I think, is the right way to go. I mean, we've been dealing with so much violence for so long, and I think, yeah, it's the right policy to put in place. It's just common sense. I don't think there should be any controversy about it at all.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I was surprised to hear some of the criticisms and pushback against it. To me, this just, again, I know it gets to be a tired phrase, but it just seems like common sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, why would anybody want somebody like that to be back out on the streets?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Another thing I was calling about was your caller from before, who stated that Pierre hasn't come up with any policies of his own. Usually I don't call in, but it was just a little bit too much that I had to. The whole Carney campaign has been based, like, a lot of his policies have been based on what Pierre has promised in the past. Like, Carney never promised to axe the tax. You know, like, that, he's only doing that for votes right now, but Pierre has been saying that for, 3 years? Like, it's that was one of his policies. He also voted, he also brought forward a motion no more than a few months ago that got voted down unanimously by the Liberal government to take the GST off home buyers. Now that's part of the Carney campaign. So to say that Poilievre doesn't have any policies of his own, I mean, the Conservative platform is being plagiarized by the Liberal side to gather more votes from the Conservative voter.
Jeff, I appreciate that call and what you point out there. And it has been pointed out before that what you could be getting in Mark Carney is Pierre Poilievre's policies without Pierre Poilievre. So if you don't like the personality, you can get the same policies with a personality that you might like better if indeed you prefer Mark Carney. There's no question there's been overlap, and the argument could be made that Mark Carney and the Liberal Party have kind of mowed some of the Conservatives' grass in this election campaign. We will be talking more about the campaign just after the 9:30 update in the 570 News Center, and we'll get into what has been described as the unspoken issue at the ballot box. And I think it's a really important one for us to talk about. That's coming up in about 10 minutes' time here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If you were listening to All News Mornings this morning with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, good for you. You're informed. If you weren't listening, you should reconsider your life choices, okay? I bring up the All News Mornings because our reporter Josh Piercy was talking about the Waterloo Catholic District School Board meeting last evening and the groups that had showed up prior to the meeting to advocate in support of our LGBTQ plus community and the continued presence of the pride flag at Catholic schools. As you know, a motion was brought forward a couple of weeks ago from one of the Catholic School Board trustees asking that all such symbols be banned and only the Canadian and or Ontario flags fly at Catholic schools. I've also received notification this morning from Kitchener Centre MPP Ashlyn Clancy that she pushed back, reading the headline from the news release, against the pride flag ban alongside local advocacy groups, which did happen at last evening's Catholic School Board meeting. I know this because I looked at the agenda, but I think this is a good time to remind you that nothing from that meeting, including the members of the public who stood up and made presentations, some in support of the ban, others against the ban, none of this can be shared with you this morning because the Catholic School Board does not live stream its meetings, does not archive them online, and does not allow you to record what happens there. So even if a reporter had been there, they could only have transcribed what was said. This is a public meeting of a publicly funded school board, and they do not stream and or otherwise archive online the meetings that happen that your public tax dollars are paying for. This is quite frankly egregious, and it needs to change. There's a motion to that effect trying to change it, but so far, this is where we are with our local Catholic school board, and I think it's important that you know that. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. This federal election is all about picking the person who is best positioned to deal with Donald Trump, right? And further to that, it's about picking the person who can increase the resiliency, the self-sufficiency of the Canadian economy in the face of tariffs. That's what this election is all about. It's certainly not about the close to 25%, 1/4 of Canadians who will be over the age of 65 in the next 15 years, right? I'm glad somebody's talking about that. Sunil Johal is a professor in public policy and society at the University of Toronto and joins our program this morning. Sunil, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for writing what you wrote and making the time to talk about it, because I feel as though we are kind of missing the big picture here to some degree when it comes to our aging population. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the current election campaign is really focused on what's happening with the United States. How do we make sure we're resilient in the face of these new tariff threats? And obviously that's a big short-term issue. But when we take a step back, there are some really big long-term trends that we need to pay closer attention to. And one of them absolutely is our aging population. I mean, you mentioned that 25% of Canadians will be over 65 by 2040. We've got more seniors in the population now than we do children. And this has major implications in a whole range of different areas. So if we think about our healthcare system, we know it's much more expensive to deliver healthcare for older Canadians. We know that housing is going to have to look different for people as they age, and we need more accessible dwellings. We need a better long-term care system. And then when we think about the economy, as the population ages, more people retire. That's going to mean fewer and fewer people in the labor market who are earning money, paying taxes, generating innovation. So what do we do about all of those issues? How do we see the interconnections between things like housing and immigration policy? How do we see the interconnections between shrinking labor market and productivity? And it's not something we're seeing a lot of conversation about in the current election campaign, but hopefully it's something we see our politicians and policymakers start to pay more attention to in the years ahead.
Are there pathways to preparedness here, Sunil? Let's start with healthcare, for example. We know the system already appears strained anyway. If we're going to have 25% of the population over the age of 65 in the next 15 years, how do we get a healthcare system ready for that?
Yeah, that's a great example and probably the most salient one in the short term for us. The healthcare system we have in Canada, often described by experts as more of a sickness treatment system, where we focus most of our funding in hospitals, on physicians, and far less focus on preventive care. So how do we make sure people don't get sick or are living healthy lives in the first place? And that's really important, because we know that as people age, that there are things we can do in terms of exercise and other well-being measures that can prepare people better for being older and less likely to have to use those really expensive hospital modalities or going to see their doctor. So that could mean greater funding for things like mental health services, aging care, thinking about tensions in our healthcare system. I mean, we tend to want to focus on universality in terms of making sure everybody has access to the same thing, but we might need to rethink that and focus more on equity considerations. How do we leverage new technologies? I mean, if you look in countries like Japan, South Korea, I mean, they're taking advantage of care robots that can help in long-term care homes to kind of take on some of those mundane day-to-day tasks that currently personal support workers or nurses might have to deal with. But if we've got fewer of those healthcare workers going forward, maybe there are opportunities to leverage that technology to take the burden off of healthcare workers. So, I mean, those are just a couple ideas. I mean, there's a whole package of things we could think about just in the healthcare system alone.
I live in a community, Sunil, that had a rich history of manufacturing, the kinds of jobs that you would essentially get for life that came with really nice pensions attached to them so that you were taken care of in retirement. I come from a family of teachers, so my parents are doing just fine when it comes to a pension. Thank you very much. But I wonder about that social safety net. My perception might be a little skewed based on what I've seen historically here in our labor force and what my parents are privileged to enjoy in terms of retirement income. How much do we have to be concerned about our social safety net? This can't be the case for everybody, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there are definitely some people in that older age cohort who do have good workplace pensions. They're going to benefit from things like the Canada Pension Plan as well. But we know that there are lots of seniors who are living in poverty. It's one of the kind of unspoken truths about our system. So how do we make sure people who maybe don't have those workplace pensions to draw from, who are still having to work into their late 60s, into their 70s, have better supports? I mean, and that's things like the guaranteed income supplement, which we've got, and it's targeted to low-income Canadians. But if you're making over $120,000, you can still draw from that guaranteed income supplement. So, I mean, that might be an area we want to think about. Let's target that resource to those who need it most, who maybe don't have other sources of income in retirement. But absolutely, I mean, that's one example in terms of our pension system. I mean, we talked about healthcare as well. I mean, skills training is another thing. I mean, as people enter their 50s and 60s, we know the world is changing around us. Artificial intelligence, all other types of emerging technologies are going to possibly shift what working means, like what it needs to work for those people. So, I mean, they might need to shift careers or learn new skills later in life, which isn't historically something people would have had to do. So how do we make sure skills training is available for people too? So a lot of those big social safety net pieces that could certainly use some improvement from both our federal government and our provincial governments as well.
If we agree, Sunil, and you and I certainly seem to, that this is an unspoken issue at the ballot box, we seem focused on tariffs, economic resilience, et cetera. If we don't start talking about this today, I mean, are we approaching any kind of tipping point about the runway we need to be adequately prepared for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tipping point, we're kind of entering that tipping point stage right now. I mean, those baby boomers who were born in the 2 decades after World War II, I mean, they've started to retire. Many more of them are going to be retiring in the next few years, and that's really when I think it's going to hit us, that all those people who have been in the labor market, working, paying taxes, are no longer doing that, and we don't have another generation really coming up behind them who are going to be able to fill that void. So I mean, now is the time to absolutely think about this, and it's not just where do we fill in gaps in the social safety net. It's how do we make sure we're becoming a productive, innovative economy. I mean, that does tie into the resilience kind of tariff conversation as well. But how do we make sure that we're not just extracting and selling natural resources? We're higher up on the value chain. We're bringing back high-paying manufacturing jobs to Canada, or keeping those that are here already here. So, I mean, a lot of big questions. These aren't easy questions to grapple with, because there are a lot of interconnections between them as well. But yeah, absolutely. If we don't start thinking about this now, in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be too late, because a lot of these changes, like making our communities more accessible, building up capacity in the long-term care system, aren't overnight things. Like, you can't just kind of say, okay, we're going to do this today and it'll be done tomorrow. I mean, these are multi-year capital investments, and we need to start down that path today before we look down and it's too late, and there's no time to kind of adapt and adjust to these new realities that demographics are forcing upon us.
It is a really important conversation. I thank you very much for highlighting it and making time for the show today. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thanks so much.
Sunil Johal is a professor in public policy and society at the University of Toronto. We're not talking about it, but the demographics behoove us to start talking about it. How do we deal with this aging population? In 15 years' time, 1/4 of Canadians will be over the age of 65. And not to put too fine a point on it, but that is one of the arguments in favor of mass immigration. You essentially import the younger population to support the aging population. Clearly, that didn't work out so well for the previous Liberal government. Will we have a next Liberal government? I don't know. But that was absolutely one of the ideas behind the immigration numbers that we saw. We got to get the young people in here because we're not having the babies to support this rapidly aging population. We are aged already. Is there an issue that matters to you in this election that's not being talked about? Obviously, we talk Trump, we talk tariffs. Sunil wants us to talk about the aging population, which I think is incredibly important. As I age, by the way. What about you? Is there an issue in this election that we're not talking about that you think we should be? Would love to hear it from you on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
As the population ages, more people retire. That's going to mean fewer and fewer people in the labor market who are earning money, paying taxes, generating innovation. So what do we do about all of those issues? How do we see the interconnections between things like housing and immigration policy? How do we see the interconnections between a shrinking labor market? Hopefully it's something we see our politicians and policymakers start to pay more attention to in the years ahead.
If you have a shrinking labor market, you have fewer people paying taxes, which means you have less money to fund the necessary things for an aging population, like, I don't know, healthcare. And what about those guaranteed income supplements, old age security, the Canada Pension Plan? Not everybody has one of those workplace pensions. Even some of the folks in that older demographic, not all boomers have workplace pensions that they can rely on. And more are actually relying on the shelter system. I remember our conversations with Supportive Housing of Waterloo and the work that they've been doing in order to support seniors who are experiencing homelessness for the first time in their lives. It's incredible. And Sunil Johal, who is a professor in the Department of Public Policy and Society at the University of Toronto, highlights it in a recent article at The Conversation. The unspoken ballot box issue is Canada's aging population. Is there another unspoken issue, something that matters to you in this election that we're not talking about? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Go to the phones. Marius, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. I have an observation, maybe, if not an issue.
Sure.
Remember 10, 15 years ago when McGuinty ran this province to the ground, and then, he came in with an idea and said, who's going to really save you? Kathleen Wynne. And everything went to hell. And now the issue I see again, and a lot of Canadians seem to be falling for it, is, hey, we Liberals really screwed up over the last 10 years, but you know who's going to save you? We're going to save you again with Carney. And it seems to be the same trick and pony show, and not too many people are saying anything about that.
Marius, I appreciate the call. I don't know that Dalton McGuinty necessarily said that Kathleen Wynne was going to save us, but I get your point. After 15 years of Liberal rule in Ontario, there was little doubt that Doug Ford would win his first term back in 2018. Now he's into a third term as a majority premier here in the province of Ontario. But I do think Marius raises an interesting point worth talking about. This actually came up in our household at a family gathering over the weekend. And it's true. You're taking essentially the same Liberal Party and you're putting a new face on it. And people seem quite energized by that. I suppose that's understandable to some degree. But Marius wants you to be aware of the fact that that's what you're being asked to do. Accept the same party with a new face at the front of it. Wayne, what issue is missing for you in this election?
Well, what surprises me, what no one is talking about, Mike, is the fact that the Liberals have screwed up this magnificent new revenue stream they promised us from legalizing marijuana. Canada exports more marijuana products than any other country in the world, yet they're not making any money off it. They're also running that into a deficit. When they first promised us this revenue stream, because that's what it was, a new revenue stream. It was supposed to be to help lower taxes, help fight population growth and problems like that. But no, they screwed it up, Mike.
Wayne, I appreciate the call. I did not recall the legalization of cannabis being described as a boon to the tax rolls, but it does make sense. You would be creating some new revenue through taxes, just like how many times have I said, and I know it's facetious, but honest to goodness gracious, go to any LCBO on any Saturday, look at all of the vehicles, all of the people going in and out of that store, and tell me we don't raise enough on sin taxes from alcohol in this province to fund everything. I can't figure it out. There's a lot of money coming in through that stuff. We'll take more calls right after this. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. The ballot box issue that's important to you, but we're not talking about is? Let us know. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Couple minutes away from our update in the 570 News Center. More time to hear from you on the issue at the ballot box that matters to you but might not be getting discussed as much as you'd like. Back to the phones. Ted, good morning.
Hi, Mike. A very occasional caller, and I've called before about seniors on fixed incomes and about donations, for example. But since, during and since COVID, because I'm on a non-indexed pension, I have now lost 20% of my disposable income to inflation and all that. I did get a modest increase from CPP, which doesn't even cover about a third of my tax increase locally for the year. So, what are we to do as seniors, and how do we continue to support the community? There's many more issues that are surrounding it, but I just want to re-emphasize just how tough it is, even for people who are now managing our money. I mean, I've cut back my spending. I look for specials. I don't drive as much and all that kind of stuff. I'm not telling you anything that everybody else hasn't experienced, but it's tough for us. Thanks for letting me vent.
No, thanks for calling, Ted, and sharing that, because I hear you. I think about it a lot. I mean that sincerely. And yeah, let's not forget that, right? Not every pension's indexed. Not every pension even exists. Mike, I got 30 seconds, but I want to give you a shot here too.
Hey, Mike. Yes, just quick. A political issue that's not really high on the list of priorities right now is the issue of higher education. I know it's been talked on the show before, and the financial challenge that those operations are facing. In 2019, they capped domestic student tuition, and that resulted in those institutions having to pivot to increasing international student enrollment to essentially subsidize domestic student tuition, and now those taps have been turned off, and those institutions are facing dire financial constraints. And this issue also ties into the need to attract young talent to Canada to stay competitive economically, but also to support our aging demographic, as previously noted. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Excellent point. Boy, you really brought it today. Every one of you on this issue. Love to hear it. Thanks for the great ideas and the articulate thoughts. To the 570 News Center for an update we go, and then Guelph gets taller. So what else is new in our cities these days? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. You may not remember this. I don't talk about it a whole lot. Not that I'm embarrassed in any way, but I lived in Guelph for about a year, decades ago. And I don't know about you, but when I think of the city of Guelph, which really, if we opened our arms wide enough and wrapped them as far as we could, we might include Guelph in our reimagined region of Waterloo conglomeration of communities, couldn't we? Anyway, it's a neighboring community. I know lots of us go back and forth to work there. Lots of us go back and forth for sporting events there. You name it. Great rivalries, great city. Smaller, right? Waterloo-ish sized, quaint. They love their trees and their environment in Guelph. And like any other Ontario city, it seems, dare I say any other Canadian city, Guelph is about to get a whole lot taller as council has approved new height limits for the downtown up to 24 stories. I don't know about you, but that sounds awfully tall for the city of Guelph. Here to talk more about it is the mayor of Guelph. Cam Guthrie joins the program. And Mayor Guthrie, let me just start with those new height limits. How does 24 stories in the downtown of Guelph sound to you?
Well, council approved that after well over a year and a half almost of engagement with the community to get some sort of balanced feedback about what our downtown needs to look like and try to maintain some of that, the Guelph DNA, the Guelph vibe of what we have that's special in the downtown, but also to say, like, hey, we're near a major transit station, not just for our own city, but for regional as well with the GO train. We have Conestoga College creating a campus in our downtown core. We want a vibrant downtown core where people can be down there, which not just to live, but it encourages then the commercial side to come downtown and open up shops. And so we just think that density and height is a good thing. And we've jumped from, in some cases, 6 to 10 stories all the way to 16 to 24 stories in some areas. And we're hoping that can unlock some land for people to, build and live in our downtown core.
You talk about height and density being good things, and critics, of course, on the other side. And from some of the feedback that you have heard, they'd be saying things like this is going to create too much traffic congestion, too many people in too small a space. How do you respond to those concerns?
Well, those are common concerns. I would disagree respectfully that being near a major transit station, being near amenities that you can literally walk out your front door to and be able to have a lot of choice for a lot of the things that you need, you may not even need a car. Now, the province last year made many areas across the province not require any parking minimums. And so our downtown core is actually one of those areas. And so there can be builds now that won't even require the project to have any parking at all. But that, again, is to try to help with the vibrancy of a downtown core. The nice thing about that, though, is that the builders, they know what the market needs. They know what the consumer needs. So if they want to build parking because they know that will help to sell their units or to rent their units, then they will build the parking that they need because they don't want empty units sitting there. So I think giving choice around parking, giving choice around where people can live to choose to own a car or not own a car, I think that's the way to go. And I think the vibrancy of our downtown will reap those benefits in the future when these things start getting built.
Are these changes being made, Mayor Guthrie, with builders in mind? Are you catering to the development community as a council?
No, that's not fully at all. I wouldn't suggest that. The balanced approach of where some height and development is going to be and where it's not, I think, was achieved in the council approval. There are some areas where we heard initial feedback over a draft where it was higher, and the ultimate choice was actually it came in lower. There was some where it was a little bit lower, and it came in a little bit higher. And at the end of the day, I think people do need to understand that developments that are being done aren't always being done by private developers. There are the nonprofit sector as well. And if we do give some height and we make the project more achievable, or it can pencil, then it may make it work in the favor of us having to have good conversations with developers about trying to add affordable housing and other benefits that can be achieved in the project. And when it was smaller and less height, those things wouldn't pencil. They wouldn't work. So actually, I think it's going to open up a lot of conversations with people to look at not just market rent or market ownership units, but also open up the opportunity for affordable housing units as well.
I'm glad you brought that piece up because it was certainly on my mind. Housing is one thing, and we know all cities need more housing. Affordable housing is another part of that. Is there anything baked into these changes, Mayor Guthrie, that make affordable housing required in some of these new developments that could go 24 stories?
We do have a future policy that is coming actually this year. It's called a community planning permit system. In your region, actually, I believe the city of Waterloo is looking at a similar thing. And that will look to actually trade off, if I could use that term, for what's called community benefits. And one of the community benefits that we're really focused on in the city of Guelph is trying to get more affordable housing units done. So if there's going to be an option of more height, then maybe we can have that conversation with them through that community permitting process, where it would say, okay, you get a little bit more height, but you've got to provide X amount of affordable housing for you to be able to achieve that. And so I think this is a good thing overall, and I think we do need supply, an increase in supply anyways, regardless if there was affordable units. That will open up more choice across the whole community if people are downsizing or switching, the current property that they're in or looking for first-time home buyers. All that choice is very, very good. But at the end of the day, it certainly would be good to have a commitment of affordable housing, and we want to look for those units too.
Change is obviously difficult for people at the best of times. And when we talk about increasing heights in downtown Guelph, one of the things when we think about the historic skyscape in Guelph is the Basilica of Our Lady, and it stands out for a reason. Is there any accommodation made to ensure that the Basilica still is that focal point in your downtown, or will these taller buildings obscure it?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to try to squeeze that in there, too, if you didn't ask, so well done. So we have what's called view corridors, and the view corridors to the Basilica are actually protected. And so we have 4 or 5 view corridors that will always make sure that the focus point of the Basilica is not obstructed. We will allow other height that can be even higher than the Basilica. However, the view will not be obstructed in those protected corridors. And what the plan has really done overall, other than just the Basilica, is it's created what's called an amphitheater type of style. In other words, if you look at sort of the main downtown core, the heart of the downtown, near the Basilica and all around those streets, you won't see a lot of height. But as you move away from that, on the edges, kind of where, people would be sitting in an amphitheater, that's where you start getting some of the height. So it's more around the perimeter areas. That's where a lot of height of the 24 is. Then as you start coming into the core, the height will kind of come down a little bit. So we're protecting heritage where we can. We're protecting those view corridors. We're protecting sort of the DNA and the heart of the city core, but we've got to allow more density and we've got to allow more choice for people to be able to live in the type of units that will, really bring some vibrancy, as I said, to the downtown core. I want to see people walking around, biking around, shopping in new stores, living close to where they work, living close to the GO train and to our transit station. That is a vibrancy that I think all downtowns need, and I'm glad that council has approved this to move forward so we can see those projects come to life.
Certainly some interesting times. Mayor Guthrie, as always, we appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you for being here.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Cam Guthrie is the mayor of the city of Guelph. Council approving new downtown height limits up to as many as 24 stories. Amphitheater style. Think of it going out and up from the core area of Guelph's downtown. It will not obstruct. There will be those areas, those pathways to see the Basilica, which is, of course, the most striking feature of Guelph, and dare I say, one of the most striking features we have anywhere in these here parts around southern Ontario. It's a gorgeous landmark, and of course, you wouldn't want it obscured. But as I said at the outset, Guelph is not unlike so many other communities today. We're going up because we don't want to, or we cannot go out. But this begs the question for me, whether you're in Guelph or elsewhere. What kind of housing are you looking for? Because I'm wondering about this, and people have accused Guelph and other communities that do this of catering to the development community, because developers love building high-rises, lots of people in less space, and there's good return on those investments for developers. But I'm thinking specifically in this case to Wilmot Township and a new subdivision there, and Councillor Chris Wilkinson is advocating for more single-family detached homes because he says that's what people are looking for. Maybe that's what people in Wilmot Township are looking for, or maybe it's what people in the city are looking for. We keep building high-rises in Waterloo Region as well. They're building more high-rises in Guelph, up, not out. But when it comes to housing, are you just looking for housing for the sake of housing, anything you can get? Or would you prefer the traditional single-family detached versus condominium/apartment living? What's your preference? What kind of housing are you looking for? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Let me know your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
If we do give some height and we make the project more achievable, then it may make it work in the favor of us having to have good conversations with developers about trying to add affordable housing and other benefits that can be achieved in the project. And when it was smaller and less height, those things wouldn't pencil. They wouldn't work.
Cam Guthrie is the mayor of Guelph. He joins us this morning to talk about downtown Guelph getting taller. Council, after much deliberation and considerable back and forth over about 18 months, have landed on new height densities that are allowed up to 24 stories in the core of Guelph, which doesn't make Guelph that much unlike many other cities in Ontario, frankly, in Canada, although I can only really speak for what we're seeing in these here parts. But we're seeing the exact same thing in the region of Waterloo. And it just makes me wonder, when it comes to housing, we know we are in the midst of a housing crisis. And in fact, we'll be talking about that in just over an hour's time with our friends at Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region today. But when it comes to housing, we talk all the time about building up, not out, which means we are getting a whole lot more high-rise towers, right? We've got some going over 50 stories in downtown Kitchener, for example, at least those that are on the books right now, not yet finished. But do you want to live in a high-rise tower, condominium/apartment, because housing is absolutely necessary and we have to build as much as we can, as quickly as we can? Or do you still long for that detached dwelling of your own? Just housing for the sake of housing, or do you have a specific kind in mind? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. I mentioned before the break, new subdivision coming to Wilmot Township, and Councillor Chris Wilkinson advocating for more single-family detached homes there, as opposed to the stacked townhouses and low-rise buildings they've been talking about. There will be some of those single-family detached, but Councillor Wilkinson has said that he thinks we need more of that because that's the kind of home people are looking for. Maybe that's the case in the township. We've had the conversation here on the show about Victoria Commons, for example, in Kitchener, which has had new height limits approved. What was going to be built as the final phase of that development in the St. Leger, Wellington area is now going to be that much taller. And it's not going to be far from other tall buildings going up near, let's say, Victoria and Margaret in Kitchener. So there's going to be a cluster of taller buildings now in that particular area of Kitchener. And some of you have said, you got to do this. You got to go up because you can't keep going out. And I understand that. And philosophically speaking, I support it. But I'll be honest with you, and I was when we last talked about it, this is the sort of thing that makes me feel claustrophobic at times. And yes, I grew up in a certain kind of neighborhood when the city looked a certain way. It makes it difficult to adjust to this. And frankly, as I said before, I don't have to like it. I'll accept it. I understand that's where we're going and why we're going that way. But I don't have to like it. And if I'm being brutally honest, I don't know that I do love it, quite frankly. I'll go to the phones. Bob, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Oh, boy, oh, boy. Good thing I'm a senior. Right now I'm living on ground level because I don't know how we would do in these big high-rises, you know. Any of these power outlets, you know, how are they going to, first responders, how are they going to come up and get you?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation about that for sure.
Big time, you know. Yeah, but, well, Mike, I tell you what, it's like throwing sand up in the air to see which way it's going to blow. You know, okay, what are we going to do?
All right, Bob, I appreciate it. And, you know, this is another aspect of it that not everybody thinks about, but I was talking to a buddy who's considering a move from the house into, you know, apartment style, condominium style. And he's like, well, what about when you're taking the groceries in? Like right now, I come into the driveway. It's, you know, a 20-foot walk to the door, let's say. In apartment condo, you're into the parking lot, parking garage, walking through there to the elevator, up the elevator. It just changes things. That's all. I'm not saying it's all bad. It's just different. In some cases, a lot different. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of our 10:30 update in the 570 News Center, because we were talking about Guelph, I'm thinking about my friend and colleague, Larry Malott, who has for the last 30-plus years been broadcasting Guelph Storm games for the radio station in Guelph. And Larry informed me last evening and made public this morning that the last game that we played this regular season, March the 23rd in Guelph, Rangers played the Storm. Storm won it 2-0. That was that was Larry Malott's last Storm broadcast. He's hanging them up after 30-plus years of calling Storm games and 50 years of broadcasting hockey. I do not know an OHL without Larry. He's been a great friend, and he's a terrific broadcaster, and he will be missed in the Ontario Hockey League. Happy trails, Mr. Malott. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. is. It's got to be the way it is. Everything is the way it is. It's got to be the way it is. Everything is the way it is. It's got to be like you said it is. I need a heart to put it on.
Now, the question is, did you all pick yourselves out of the medley? Of course you did. I was asked as we got set up for this next segment, when's the last time you had 3 rock stars in the studio, Farwell? That would be never, but I have it finally this morning. Good morning to Dana Kay of Dana Kay and the Remedy. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, too.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Our good friend Leah Friday is back with Something's Always Flying. A very good morning.
Thank you.
How are you?
Excellent and wonderful.
Feeling good?
Feeling rocking and rolling, rolling and rocking.
I love it. Last time you were here, we talked about your health challenges. I'm glad to see you here and rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And we also have with us in studio Ryan Hayes with Fire in the Valley. Mr. Hayes, good morning to you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Great to be here.
It's great to have you all here. Dana, let me start with you because what we're here to talk about, I mean, I want to talk about your music. I want to talk about your history in music. But the 3 bands, Fire in the Valley, Something's Always Flying, Dana Kay, and The Remedy, coming together for this show at the end of the month. How does the collaboration work in the music scene? How did you become associated with these other degenerates in the rock and roll music scene?
Crazy people.
It's quite an amazing story, actually. It started, first of all, we're connected or have known Fire in the Valley sort of since they began because we are all sort of connected through Elmira and the music scene that's local here. We've got a couple players that work together, and so we cross paths in that way, inside music and outside music. But then I had the absolute honor of supporting Leah and Something's Always Flying, fronting them for a little bit of time there this past year, and discovered that Leah and I actually share a birthday. So we decided first, yes, we have the same exact birthday in July. But we decided first that we were going to have this big birthday bash and bring a whole bunch of bands, and maybe that's how we would begin. But knowing it's July, we thought, no, that's way too long to wait. And plus, everybody leaves in the summertime. So let's do this in the spring. And Steve, the drummer, all 3 drummers are named Steve, by the way, but the drummer from Something's Always Flying, Steve, came up with this concept of a spring thing. And so that's where this sort of was born. And we thought, we've got to do this. We've got to get these groups together and just have a really fun night where each group gets to showcase it locally in town here in a way that folks don't normally get a chance to see us, because we are all bands that are working bands that play around town quite regularly, and but we wanted to do something together that would be really different.
All right.
So we've got lots planned that night that'll do that.
Tell the truth, Dana, because Steve will never hear this, okay? The drummers, they're the weird ones in the band. Is he the drummers or the bass players?
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't say that, guys.
Don't worry. Like I said,
it's being recorded.
Steve will never hear it. I guarantee he'll never, ever hear it. Ryan, Fire in the Valley, how did it get started?
Oh, good question. So I was actually the last of the 5 to join Fire in the Valley. So Jason Murdoch and Ivan Lee, 2 good friends, great friends at this point, but they had started with their brother Matt, who, funny enough, is also our photographer. But short answer actually is a Kijiji ad. I found on Kijiji, I'm new to the area, I'd been with a couple bands, but I wanted something a little bit more formalized. I've done this since I was very young. So I just met him at a Tim Hortons on Victoria Street, and here we are. We've had 1 lineup change from the original members. We had a couple change, but that's it. So that's, the short version. It's been a great run. I really love playing around. Just the local community is fantastic. To meet people like this, it's just such an honor to work with them, too. I mean, I love to be able to do this. We usually gig about once a month. That's about it. So, but it's been a great run. Hopefully it keeps going and gets bigger and bigger with the help from our colleagues here. I do know you and I started, Steve and I from Something Always Flying, started talking at one show at Block 3, and that's how the Fire in the Valley and Something's Always Flying sort of started.
Right.
And it very much just took off from there.
So, Leah, tell us more about this local music scene. Obviously, we've got 3 great rock and roll bands coming together for this show at the end of the month. But you're not the only bands making a living, working hard in the local music scene. How is our local music scene doing?
I believe it's flourishing. I believe it's juicy. The good thing about us is the people that are coming to see us, they're going to get rocked out. So the genre of music that we play is it's high energy for sure. So that leaks out into the audience. And I think really they seek that, and then they talk about it amongst themselves, and then it comes back and we get to actually exude that passion for them. So it's a highly passionate community from the people that I've met, obviously, deep-hearted, deeply talented. I don't think any of us is doing this for riches. Right, we're doing
You're
this.
not. It's like people in radio, Leah. Like, come on.
I know. You get.
It's all about the art.
It is. It's about the passion. For me, it's about the energy exchange. Right. I haven't been able to sing for a couple of months now, just because of the way our schedule flows. So April 26th is a milestone for me, physically, mentally, emotionally. Right. So they're going to get that. But the community is hands down incredible. I don't even know another word to use. Passionate, incredible, highly talented.
It is a gifted music scene. I've said it often in this region.
Out there
and
as well.
it is.
Yes,
it's very,
absolutely.
I love the collaboration. Leah Friday with Something's Always Flying. Dana Kay and The Remedy, and Ryan Hayes, Fire in the Valley with us on the Mike Farwell Show. Don't worry. You'll find out where you get to see them all and rock out with them in a couple of weeks' time. Stay with us. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In studio this morning with Ryan Hayes, Fire in the Valley, Dana Kay of Dana Kay and The Remedy, and Leah Friday, Something's Always Flying. The three bands coming together for the Spring Thing show at the KW Naval Association on April the 26th. It's a week this coming Saturday already. Holy Hannah, time flies. Dana, what inspired you to get into music? Why did you start singing?
Okay, well, that's an interesting question for me because I've always sung. Since I was a little kid, I had a tambourine and a Patsy Gallant outfit that I would run around the house and all of that. But I sang in the choir at school and that kind of thing, but I never really got into a band or really into singing until I was 24. And I substituted in for my uncle's band. There were no girls allowed in the band, but I was family, so they made an exception to the rule. And I realized, hey, this is really awesome. It's an amazing way to, expend energy and connect with people. And it was lots of fun. And so I substituted in, and then they had a vote, and I got to stay. And eventually one song turned to 3 songs, turned to a band of my own, and it just grew from there. And then I had the pleasure of meeting Howie Brown, who's the guitarist in Dana Kay and The Remedy, at a fundraiser show for the Woolwich community. And we got to chatting about the potential of creating a blues band, which eventually turned into Dana Kay and The Remedy, which is a rock band, which is certainly what we love to do the most. So
that's fantastic. I love it. Ryan, you were mentioning earlier gigging at Block 3 with Steve, Something's Always Flying. I heard you mention the Red Chevron Club in Guelph during a break. I know the Duke in Waterloo is big on live music. What's the scene like? Where does music take you in Fire in the Valley?
Most of the time, we've got 3 or 4 spots that we go to. We've played. A big one here in Kitchener is the Edelweiss. I have to shout out them. They support the scene very, very well. Twice a week, every week. So, yeah, big shout out to them. I also have to mention Roger up in Elmira at the Rural Roots Brewery. I know we've all played there. So there are certain, Block 3 is another big one, of course. Yeah, so shout out to them too. But there are a few places that will just have anybody that meets the criteria, of course, in, and then, of course, call them back. So that's usually it. We've got 2 new ones on the docket this season, Trackside Tavern and 3 Idiots. I'm just not exactly sure how those are going to go, but we've done our homework to figure out what we need. But that's usually what we'll do. We'll find a restaurant or a restaurant-bar combination. We also like to do festivals. Guelph Multicultural Festival we did a couple years. Elmira Maple Syrup Festival we missed this year due to some issues, but that's always really, really... It's not only fun, but it's really rewarding to see the full community in a festival setting. But yeah, most of the time it's bars, sort of brew pub type things. Yeah.
Leah, what can we expect at the Spring Thing show with all three of these bands at the KW Naval Association on April the 26th?
Fire, spice, and a lot of happy. That's what you can expect. High energy. I know that Dana Kay and the Remedy has a special section coming up into the end of the show, so that we're going to have some high power, just high energy. Come and dance.
So you know already some of what's going to, like, take me through the preparation for April the 26th. Mm-hmm. Clearly that's already begun.
Oh, yeah, it happened a while ago. The three bands got together and had a talk about crossovers for songs, because we do sound, we don't sound the same, but we do sing the same songs. So we wanted to make sure that there was no crossover, so we kind of dealed them out. We've been rehearsing separately. There have been the leaders of the band that have been talking and making sure that the tech is set up. We have some tech people from our band that are going to take over the whole night. So it really is a joint effort. We're all taking care of each other. Somebody from the band might be selling tickets when somebody else, is that you? Okay. So we've really come together and we're doing what we need to do. It's whatever makes the show go. That's the collaboration, whatever makes the show go.
All right. I love the idea of the energy. I love the idea of spring. If the weather could cooperate with that, we're behind it. Where can we get our hands on tickets?
Eventbrite.
Okay.
Yeah, the Spring Thing Rock Show. You can get them on Eventbrite now, or you can get them at the door.
Okay.
6:30.
6:30,
yep,
April the 26th. Yes. 7 o'clock you're on?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a rock star. So you'll be on at like 7:45? Is that how it's
Keeping this,
You're going to keep
we're going to keep this where it needs to be. That was one of the first discussions we had when we had our meeting.
Absolutely love it. It's the Spring Thing Rock Show. Something's always flying. Fire in the Valley, Dana Kay and the Remedy. And now we have a first on the Mike Farwell Show. 3 rock stars in the studio with me at the same time. Absolutely love it. Thank you all for being here. Keep up your great work. Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Fudge.
This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, this couldn't have worked out any better. In case you didn't know, the sounds you're hearing right now are those of Cheryl Lescombe, local musician. And we actually, by design, incorporate a bunch of local sounds into our show. We've had to fight for them recently, too, to keep them away from all those internet cops. But anyway, we like to showcase all things local here on the program. And I'm just a huge, passionate supporter of the arts and our local music scene. And that's why it was great to have Fire in the Valley and Dana Kay and the Remedy and Something's Always Flying here in studio with us this morning, talking about their Spring Thing rock show coming up on Saturday, April the 26th. That's 1 week from this Saturday at the KW Naval Association there on Weber Street between University and Columbia. If you go to Eventbrite, look up Spring Thing Rock Show, you'll find the tickets right there, and you can get them at the door as well. Doors at 6:30 on Saturday the 26th at the KW Naval Association. And kudos to, we ran through a handful of them, but I know there are so many local bars, restaurants, venues that provide opportunity for these local musicians to play. I think it's fantastic, and the more we can support that local music scene, the better for all of us. Keep them playing and keep us entertained. If music be the food of love, but don't get me going on and on about my Shakespearean roots. Interesting news out of Japan today, a news outlet saying, and you've no doubt heard this in our updates from the 570 News Center, that Honda might be moving some of its Canadian production to the U.S. in response to new tariffs. Now, that, of course, is exactly what Donald Trump wants. That's not exactly good at all, of course, for Ontario. Alliston, one of those areas where billions of dollars in government subsidies, provincial and federal, have been invested, right, in the next generation of Honda production in Ontario. So tariffs continue to wreak havoc and have an impact on what's going on here. So we'll keep you up to date on that developing story out of the 570 News Center. And I can't help but share this. We talked about it on the show last week because I got an email. Oh, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name who sent the email. Brian. Anyway, said, I see this guy on Lackner Boulevard every morning on my commute to Guelph, and he's out there and he's picking up garbage on the side of the road. He said, you have to give this guy a shout out. I said, give him a shout out. I know this man. I know this man well. He's been doing this for decades. His name is Jim Roman, and he's out there, as I said, for decades. He's been walking along his morning walk or jog along Lackner Boulevard. He collects the garbage along the way just to keep his little part of Kitchener looking good. And wouldn't you know, Jim sends me an email this morning. Thanks for the shout out. A lady called me over, said she sees me picking trash every day, and gave me a $25 gift card for Starbucks. Also, Jim was honored with the King Charles Coronation Medallion for his volunteering with Habitat for Humanity. Jim, you are a stone cold beauty. And people like you make our community great. Well, it's just so great. People see him, we want to know who this guy is. Lady gives him a Starbucks gift card, and he's recognized for his work with Habitat for Humanity. All in all, the kind of people that make a community tick. Way to go, Jim Roman. Keep up that great work out there on Lackner Boulevard. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. One of the great things about this show, I'm not saying the show is great. That's completely up for you to determine its greatness or lack thereof. But what I enjoy about it is it gives us the opportunity to keep an eye on things. And we hear about things like high performance development standards, for example, and these sound great. We're going to make more climate resilient, energy efficient communities. But are we in any way missing the mark with these high performance development standards? Well, we can at least talk about where we might be able to do better. And that's why I've got Barbara Norton in studio with me this morning, the president of Norton Engineering. Barbara Robinson, of course. But Norton Engineering, why don't we just touch base on that for a minute?
Yes.
Take us to, I love the backstory of Norton Engineering.
So I was nicknamed, Norton Engineering, the company, my company has been around for 10 years, but I was nicknamed Norton 15, 20 years ago in my industry because...
Norton!
Exactly. Ed Norton of the Honeymooners was a sewer maintenance worker. Now, I'm a civil engineer. It's very unusual for civil engineers to go into sewers, but I spend half my time in sewers with the guys, with operations, and that's why I'm the expert, because I spend half my time actually doing the work with the guys.
Absolutely. And so
I love it.
When we talk about these high-performance development standards, Barb, and they do include in them stormwater, sewers, but not sanitary. So this is a gap perhaps here.
A gap would be an understatement. So high-performance development standards are a fabulous idea. Great. We're in the climate change era now, so let's start building our homes and our lots more climate efficient, more efficient in general. So they're a fabulous idea. So I just got around to reviewing this stuff. It's all online now, and they've been having public information sessions. So basically, it's an initiative of the region and the local municipalities and some of the energy folks or whatever. So a team of people have been working on this for about 4 years. Anyway, I just reviewed it recently, and I discover and so what they cover, what the standards cover is basically new subdivision lots. So if you buy a house in a new subdivision, we want to make sure that entire lot is designed in a way that's climate friendly, energy efficient. So that's what it just covers, a lot. So the standards cover water, potable water, and stormwater. They don't even mention sewers. Now, Mike, if you're looking at a new subdivision lot, there's 3 engineering infrastructure pieces on there: sandy, storm, and sewer. You can't leave out sewers. And I'll tell you why, and your residents are not going to want to hear this, but new subdivision sewers across Canada, but specifically across Ontario, where I have the most data, are leaking badly when we accept them. When a city accepts some of these new subdivisions, they're not checking for leakage. There's allowable leakage in new sewers. It's in our specs and standards and all that. There are numbers that we're supposed to be confirming, checking, testing. We're not doing it. So I've discovered over the last 10 years as Norton Engineering, actually prior to that, that new subdivision sewers are pouring clean water into our existing infrastructure on day one. And that means the existing residents are paying for that clean water for the next 75 years. It starts on day one and every day, whatever. So you pay every month on your bill, on water sewer bill, you pay for sewage treatment or whatever. You're paying for all that clean water. So, okay, great. All that clean water getting in. The other thing about this clean water that we know, so across North America, we have agreed that 60% to 70% of the clean water that gets into sewers is on the private side, meaning on like the development lot where somebody has a house. So basically, sewers on your property are leaking 60 to 70% of the leakage that's getting into the city system. So if we're doing high performance development standards, and we know that these new sewers are leaking, specifically the private side new sewers are leaking, why wouldn't we not look at how to make that better, how to improve that? Would that be hard to do? No. There are there's all kinds of new stuff. Since climate change came on, we're publishing all kinds of things. But there are 2 national sewer standards in Canada now. One discusses ways to reduce the risk of leaking sewers, reduce the risk of leaking in new subdivisions, specifically sewers. And there's one to reduce the risk of, or to reduce leakage in existing sewers. And there's another one that gets into excruciating detail about lot level things like the building envelope and where the drainage should go, stuff like that. So these are all standards that were paid for by the federal government. 30 or 40 volunteers across Canada spend 3 or 4 years on these standards. And I worked on all 3 of those and I drafted the first 2. The 2 sewer standards. So we developed in great detail best practices, ways to reduce the risk of some of this leakage happening. So all the high performance development standards people here had to do was open up those guidelines and say, oh, well, here's something we can do, or we can do this. Obviously, Mike, we're not going to be able to include everything in these sewer standards or whatever, but there's a lot of easy stuff.
Why aren't we doing it?
Well, developers are very powerful, and developers are loath to make any changes regarding how they do things because they think it's going to cost them more money. And I have data that tells me it won't cost them more money to build sewers correctly in new subdivisions. And I'll tell you where this came from. I was engineer of record for Woolwich for almost 20 years, and I discovered a new subdivision leaking in St. Jacobs in 2005, so a long time ago. And then we decided in Woolwich, if that subdivision is leaking, maybe the other new ones are also. So then we proceeded to put flow monitors in the next 4 new subdivisions that were being built. All 4 of them, so that's 5 in total, were all leaking unacceptably. Way more water was getting in than our standards allow. And the reasons, like there were different contractors, different developers, different soils. It's not like there was any one thing. And the reason in each case was a different reason. So, but the 6th subdivision that we flow monitored, by this time all the developers knew that I was going to have a flow monitor in the downstream end of every subdivision. The 6th subdivision didn't leak at all. No leakage. Because they knew because what happened was when my flow monitoring told me that the leakage was unacceptable, I said, we're not accepting your sewers, go back and fix it. And they couldn't get their money back and all, how they want to, anyway. But let me give you a simple example of something that's in these national standards that we could so easily have used. So you might not be aware, but trees and sewers are not friends. Trees, they're not actually after the water in sewers, they're actually after the air. But anyway, if there's a tree near a sewer and there's any defect at all in that sewer, the tree roots will penetrate into the sewer. And for older sewers like my house was, and your house may be like that too, we actually were just butt-ending clay pipe together. It wasn't even really a joint. So tree roots get in there and just block that sewer, which causes basement flooding for residents. And also the tree roots getting in expands the joint and causes leakage into that sewer. So I came up with this idea 7 or 8 years ago, I don't know how long ago, in new subdivisions where we always give people a tree, which everybody loves trees, right? Well, I don't want that tree right on top of where the sanitary sewer is. I would like to space the trees in between the sanitary sewer on each lot so the tree is as far away from each of the sanitary sewer laterals that it can be. That's a simple thing. It wouldn't cost anybody any money. It's just being efficient. the only vegetative solution that's mentioned in these development standards is to use to increase the percentage of native plantings. I mean, of all the things that we could be doing, yeah, that's important, but we've been talking about planting native species for, 20, 30 years? I mean, really? That's high performance? Like, come on.
It doesn't sound very high performance, and I want to continue on this because it's so simple, and yet we're not doing it. And we're going to see if we can incentivize our municipalities to get behind this a little better. Barb Robinson is the president of Norton Engineering, joins us on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are in studio this morning with Barb Robinson, who is the president of Norton Engineering. High performance development standards. Wonderful ideas. And in fact, even the implementation is terrific in a number of areas. They're making our communities more climate resistant. They're building energy efficient neighborhoods. This is all well and good, but Barb, because of her extensive work and background, has identified some gaps, particularly around sewers. Now, I want to be clear on this. Our water is in no way in danger. It's still clean, it's still safe, etc. What we're dealing with here is an additional financial burden on homeowners. Yes?
Absolutely.
Right.
So we're not building the private side sewers now correctly in the first place. I won't go into the technical details, but we're cutting corners. They're not being inspected, and we're not testing that private side sewer. It's right in the building code. You have to test that private side sewer. Nobody in Waterloo Region is testing the private side sewer. So we're not even meeting code requirements today. Developers don't want to test that private side sewer. It slows them down. It takes time, whatever. Well, I really don't care what developers want. I care what's best for residents. If we're not looking after that sanitary sewer that we already know is leaking, some poor young family is just going to buy their first house, and they get into that house and there's a sewer there that hasn't been tested, hasn't been inspected, and nothing is preventing that sewer. In fact, it happens all the time. I get calls from across Ontario from people whose new sewer collapsed. Sewers are collapsing, they're leaking, whatever. So these people are faced with a collapsed sewer and a basement flood because the cities did not enforce their own guidelines and standards. Like, this is not fair. So, I'll say something else. I've written 4, 5, 6, whatever national standards or standards that I consulted nationally on. 4 of them were self-published, and the other 3 I mentioned. I've worked with developers extensively on all of these things, and my experience with developers is they do not want to spend a single penny more for anything. They do not care. They're private entities. Fair enough. They want to get in, get out, get their money. And let me give you an example. So on the public side, so there's a pipe that goes from your house to the sewer on the street. So the first part you own until the property line, and then from the property line to the sewer on the street is the city pipe. So when we're installing that city pipe, that 4-inch city pipe, we put a good quality gasketed green pipe. On the private side that the resident is going to own, we put in a crappy white plastic glued pipe that shatters easily. We put in a poor quality pipe on the resident side. So 6 or 7 years ago when I was in Durham working on something like this, and the developers were arguing, and I said, if you guys would voluntarily put the gasketed pipe on the private side, which would there'd be less leakage, it's more robust, there's a lot of reasons to put a better pipe, it's got to last 100 years. Let's not put a crappy pipe in there, right? $40 per lot is how much it would cost developers to upgrade from the crappy pipe, which actually isn't even approved for burial. That's another long story. Cost them $40 per lot to put in a bigger pipe. These guys were like, oh my God, we're starving. There's no way we could spend a night with our profit margins. They don't want to spend $40 a lot on a better pipe. Again, this is something that should be in our high performance development standards. We won't make developers spend $40 more a lot, but we'll let a resident block have a basement flood and let a lot of clean water get into the sewers. Here's the other thing. When we let all this, so I'm worried about residents who are buying these homes with sewers that aren't being taken care of, but all this clean water gets into our sewer system, gets into our trunk sewer system, our pumping stations, and gets to our sewage treatment plant, using up capacity in our sewers. We cannot afford to dig up sewers and put bigger ones in. Much more efficient, cost-effective to build sewers correctly in the first place so they're not leaking or leaking just a little bit.
So how do we get municipalities, Barb, to buy into this? How do we get them to enforce these standards?
Yeah, well, I've been on that for a very long time, as you know, talking about it relentlessly or whatever. But a document like this is a good opportunity. So we're coming up with a brand new document. So let me tell you what's happened since. So I read through the documents, and of course, I immediately saw that we'd forgotten about sanitary sewers. So I put in a comment sheet and put the comment, you missed sanitary sewers, and then I contacted the guy who's writing it, and we had a chat, and so he said, well, I love your passion for sewers, but I'll tell you what, maybe the next draft, like this one, let's skip it, but maybe in the next draft. Well, it's still out for public consultation. They're having public meetings like the last 3-4, they've been having public meetings all around and asking for public comment. If they're not accepting public comment anymore, why are they asking for it? And I did ask, so who was consulted? Like, who did you consult? Developers and developers consultants, city staff, and then general public residents. So developers were very much in there helping to decide, helping to drive the conversation. Developers are for-profit entities. Their raison d'etre is not to improve things for the city. They don't care. They want to get out. We can't allow developers to keep setting sewer policy. It's not fair to the residents. It's unbelievable. It's
we need to get folks with your expertise onto this consultation committee.
Well, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, the gentleman said, well, when we do an update, we could sit down and have a big conversation and you can tell me everything you know. And I said, yeah, you guys can hire me. Like, I'm a private citizen. This is not my job to correct everything these guys are doing. I have other things to do, like paid work, right? I'm doing this for the residents. So anyway, so we left it that he said, well, maybe we could wait till the next iteration. And I said, no, that is not good enough. It's not good enough for the residents. I'm calling on everybody today, everybody listening. I mean it, you guys. I know sewers. Everybody tells me I'm their hero, whatever. Contact your local councillor, your local mayor, your regional councillor, and the regional chair. And all you have to ask is one simple question. We demand, or I demand, or we need sewers included in high-performance development standards. That's it. If anything is going to change this, it's going to be residents changing the conversation, because I won't comment on what cities do, but
all right, we need sewers in high performance development standards. It's easy. Let's beat the drum and make sure we get them in there.
Bingo. Let's go, Mike.
Thank you. Let's go, Barb of Norton Engineering. Thanks for your insight today.
Great. Thanks for having me on, Mike, again.
Barb Robinson is the president of Norton Engineering. We need sewers in high performance development standards. Are you listening? 150 Frederick Street. Are you listening? 200 King West. That's Kitchener City Hall. I could keep going. This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We need sewers included in high-performance development standards. Pretty simple message from Barb Robinson, the president of Norton Engineering, who joined the show this morning. Let's quickly go to the phones ahead of our update from the 570 News Center. Joe, good morning.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Not bad, thanks. I was just calling to talk about what Barb had to say about the sewer system from the city being this high-quality green pipe in comparison to the really bad quality white PVC pipe that's used. It's all the same material, and it's up to the municipality and the province to change building code on the material that's used in plumbing. Like, I've been plumbing for 10 years, and I deal with all kinds of block drains and stuff like that all the time, and it's a constant problem of clay drains. I have seen a plastic drain get crushed maybe once or twice, but it's always the clay drains. And to say that the developers are the ones that are skimping out, it's the developers are going with the lowest code possible for everything, and that's for anything. Not just plumbing, not just sewers, not just electric, everything. They're always going with the lowest common denominator. So the province, the city, municipality, they're the ones that need to change the rules, not the developers having to change their ways, because they're just doing what the government says the minimum standard is.
Joe, I really appreciate that insight, and I'm with you, and that's why the message has to be to our local councils, right? Let's include sewers in our high-performance development standards, because we can do better and we can save residents money in the long term. Great insight from somebody in the trades who's dealing with these things. An update from the 570 News Center is coming up, and speaking of the trades, building those houses How can we find hope in the midst of this housing crisis? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. When the first day of the month falls on a Tuesday, your regular Tuesday segments come up in a hurry. We had our Ask the Chief segment on the first day of the month. We checked in with our friends at the Canadian Mental Health Association last Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month, and on the third Tuesday of every month at this time, we invest some time because it's important time to invest in one of the biggest issues our community faces, and that is housing. This conversation is facilitated each and every month by Philip Mills, who's the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. Phil, always good to have you on the show. Good morning.
Morning.
When you think of the housing crisis that we are in the grips of here in the region, and frankly, I know this applies beyond our own borders, but we focus here on the region. What is it that has brought us to this point? What contributing factors do you see here?
There are so many things that have brought us here. At times, it all kind of feels a bit overwhelming. Some of them are really simple. Like, we're not building enough houses. There are more people than we have houses for. It's not that complicated. You know, the Community Foundation does a report, their vital signs report, talking about, they looked at growth in the community versus housing starts. And if we looked at kind of between 2022 and 23, the gap between starts and population growth was about 14,000 homes. So like massive numbers of homes that just weren't created, and more people came than we have space for. And so that creates a massive, sort of housing crisis. But it's also more complicated than that, because it's not just quite that simple. It's not just go build more houses, because there are other things in place, whether they be rising construction costs. You talk about our, we'll say eccentric neighbors to the south, and what that does with the costs of things in our community. You talk about local bylaws, all of those things, and they are big and complicated interconnected systems, make the idea of just building more houses more complicated. So there's something really simple. We just don't have enough houses. But why we don't and what we need to do about that gets really complicated and things beyond a lot of our control.
Yeah, and that's a great summary of how we arrived at this point and the challenge that exists to overcome the crisis we're in the midst of. But you have found a reason to be hopeful in all of this. And I think that's so important, because if we just throw up our hands and say, I'm overwhelmed, I can't take it, I'm going to be defeatist, where do you find reason for optimism? Where's the hope coming from for you, Phil?
I think the hope is in our community. Like, when you talk with people, rightfully so, a lot are kind of resigned to this is the way that it is and the way that it will always be. But I think our community has a real history of tackling and solving big, complicated problems. And one of the amazing things about our community is it is filled with a number of spectacular charities and wonderful people doing really incredible work to address this problem. And across the totality of the spectrum, when we talk about affordable housing and who needs affordable housing, I think we can kind of pigeonhole what that looks like. We might think specifically about somebody who's street involved, or we might think about somebody with a mental health concern or an addictions issue, but it's so much broader than that. And we are lucky that we have in our community people working across the spectrum. So there are community groups working with folks who are street involved, and there are folks who are working with those who are working but still can't afford to live, who are paying way too much of their income towards the rent. They are precariously housed because rent is so expensive. And there are those like us who are working with people who can't afford to buy a house no matter what they do, because it has gotten so out of their control and the system has grown so much. So there's everything happening in our community. And I think what gives me hope is we have really great people who care deeply about this community working every day to try and solve it.
Given that, so we know our governments are working with upper levels of government, either to secure funding through something like the Housing Accelerator Fund, to reduce red tape, take your pick. But we know our governments are working collaboratively. You've just talked about the various agencies, which Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region would be one of them, working in this space for sure. And we know that you collaborate with those other agencies, whether they're at the street level with street involved folks or getting people into affordable housing. But what about the rest of us then? Should we just dust our hands and say, okay, the charity and nonprofit sector is taking care of it and the governments are taking care of it? What about us individually? Is there a role here?
There is. And I think, sometimes this stuff sounds simple and, it's almost a known thing, but I always want to reiterate back, like, we can't do this alone. We can't solve these problems alone. We need the community to come alongside of us. And there's really simple, practical ways. If we don't, like, we need more than symbolism in some of this. We need more than tokenism in this. We need people to actually come and partner with us. And that looks like a whole lot of things. For a lot of folks, that can be volunteering. That can be giving up your time and energy, your expertise to come and support one of the many charities addressing housing. Realizing this is a tough ask in these days, but we need money. All of these charities are working off of their charities. They're working off of donations. They're working off of the support of those who care about this. Government invests as much as they can, but it's never enough. And we realize that nobody's going to say, hey, let's raise our taxes. It's not a common thing that people are arguing for. So I'm certainly not going to get more government funding. At a point, we look to our community and say, if this is what you value and is important to us, to you, we need you to invest in us. So we need donors. We need money. But also, there's other opportunities here. If you got, services, if you are, somebody who has skills that you could donate, that's fantastic too. We take those sort of services, whether they be, opportunities to, reduce in costs to make it cheaper for us. If we're talking about, when we're building, we talk to suppliers and say, hey, can you help us on the cost on this? Can you help us make this wood, this drywall, these doors more affordable so we can build more houses and fundraise less? There's an opportunity across the whole spectrum of businesses to sponsor, individuals to donate. And if none of that is the case, because you're in a position where you can't afford that these days, we need your voice. We need you to be going out and talking to your city councilors. We need you to be writing those op-eds into into the news, because that stuff matters. That helps to shape public opinion. And we need a public opinion that is supportive of affordable housing. I can't combat NIMBYism by myself. We need the community to combat NIMBYism so we can actually get the housing that we need in place. And we need our governments to feel empowered to combat NIMBYism because they're overwhelmed by community support. So yeah, maybe you don't have the money right now because money is tight. Great. You've got a voice. You've got time. Speaking back into this, dialogue around the necessity of affordable housing through your local politicians is massively supportive to the work that we do.
When you were talking earlier, Phil, about our region being known for innovative solutions to big problems and the things that we have accomplished in the past, the number of barns that were raised, if you will, because we love to talk about that barn raising spirit in this community, I can't help but think of the Build Now initiative and that idea of building 10,000 affordable, attainable homes. I know the largest project under that banner is the one out by Rim Park in Waterloo right now, but there is still more room for this. And I think that could be the signature initiative for Waterloo Region as it tries to solve the housing crisis.
That was what we were aiming for when we set out and we said we wanted to do this, was to make a transformative impact on the region. We wanted to say, we're not going to kind of work around the edges and find small wins. We're going to say, how do we make this, actually change? How do we transform housing in our region? So it had to be big, it had to be bold, it had to be a lot. And to see municipalities come alongside of us, the city of Kitchener we're in negotiations with, and the city of Waterloo we're in negotiations with around opportunities to bring affordable and attainable housing to the community. And that happens because our politicians know this is needed. They know this is a necessity. And they've got the support of their community. The community has said, go act on this, make a change. And so back to what can anybody do, supporting this type of work, because we need more. This is not the time to say, hey, great, city of Waterloo, city of Kitchener, thank you for your work. Now we're done. We're targeting over 1,000 homes. I still have 9,000 more to go. We need more land. We need more opportunity because we need more housing. And so continuing to expect our politicians to invest in this, not once, not twice, but over and over until this crisis is solved, and continuing to support our charities and our not-for-profits to work at this day after day, because this isn't a one-day solution. We're going to be working at this for years, and we need your support over the long haul if we're going to get this problem sorted.
And I think that's where the community comes in again. Volunteering, financial support, great, both of those, but also just raising one's voice so that your municipal councillor knows, your MPP knows, and hey, since we're into a federal election campaign, maybe the person who wants to be your MP can know that this is a concern to you too.
Yeah, we need those in power to know that this is a priority for our community. And the only way they're going to know that is if we keep telling them. That's how they know. They listen. They actually do listen. They do care. They do read the emails. So we need to be persistent in saying this problem hasn't gone away, and we need you to keep doing what you've done and to do more, because this is one of the fundamental problems we're facing as a community, and the only way to solve this is together.
I certainly admire your persistence, sir, in a space that is not an easy space to work in, but you and the team there continue to persevere and persist. It's admirable. Keep up the great work, and as always, thanks for the conversation.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike. It's a pleasure every time.
Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. He joins us on the show on the third Tuesday of every month at 11:30 to talk about housing. And today, Phil finds hope in the midst of a housing crisis. And I can't help but think of the Habitat for Humanity model, which, of course, takes people who are working. Families is what the focus has always been, and gets them into affordable housing that they put in hundreds of hours of sweat equity in order to attain. I've long loved the model, but we've read stories over time about how the financial considerations are changing, because what used to be, somebody's income would be, let's just use an arbitrary number, $45,000 a year, and then they'd be applying for and qualifying for a project at Habitat for Humanity. Now, I know in the Toronto area, we're talking like $100,000 a year, like that. And when I was a kid, I'm old enough to remember a time that $100,000 a year was a substantial income. Substantial. And now it's the kind of income, family income, that can put you on a waiting list for a Habitat for Humanity home in some markets in this province. It's incredible. And it takes me back to something that the economist and expert in the housing space, he consulted the previous Liberal government on its housing strategy. Where are those prefab homes, by the way? Where's our catalog of wartime homes? I know you can't just create one overnight, but Mike Moffat is the economist and housing expert I'm referring to, advocated for that, had it included in the plan. I remember former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau talking about it. I got a release from the Ontario Realtors Association today talking about the importance of prefabricated homes in solutions here for our housing shortage. Anyway, back to Mike Moffat. Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but it was, and I still think is, a great idea. Mike Moffat shared on the weekend, and I will quote directly, "Not so fun fact, assuming no change in nominal home prices, in other words, the value of your home today stays exactly where it is. It doesn't move." Okay? I know if you're a homeowner and you're counting on that for your retirement or part of it, to think that it doesn't increase in value anymore forever. But just think, this is Mike Moffat's tweet. "Not so fun fact. Assuming no change in nominal home prices, it will take over 27 years of wage growth for Kitchener-Waterloo to return to the housing affordability levels of 2005. The price of homes remains stagnant, no change, and wages have to grow for 27 years just to get back to the affordability levels of 2005 in our community. In other words, that's never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But that's how far behind we are when it comes to the affordability of this market. It's incredible. And in the midst of it all, Philip Mills, the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, finds hope. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Time for the local business spotlight on 570 News Radio.
And joined this morning by Doug Damon, founder and managing director of the Huddle Media Group. Doug, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Farwell. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent, thank you. How about yourself?
Well, Mr. Farwell, I'm grateful, a little bit caffeinated and all fired up. But I'm ready to talk small business and community support and on all the wonderful things that come with that.
I love it. A little bit caffeinated, all kinds of fired up. That's my kind of person. Okay, so let's start then, Doug, with the basics here. What exactly is Huddle Media Group? How did it come to be?
Okay, awesome question. Well, let me start by saying that we're really, really excited. I'm really excited to announce that I was about to take the first steps in launching right here in Kitchener-Waterloo in the next coming weeks. The Huddle Small Business Marketing Platform, Mike, the whole concept has really been a making of the last 6 years. But it was all fueled by one very huge idea, and that was to help small business and community organizations get the recognition and the support they deserve right in their own backyards. Pretty simple concept, really. So how about I start with our why? And that really is, after 30 years as an entrepreneur myself and 20 years advising and mentoring small business owners, I've seen firsthand how tough it is for small business to stand out, especially with the big competitors flashing huge budgets, aggressive marketing campaigns. They've been lost, literally. That's why I created Huddle. I was on a mission to build a better, more impactful and affordable way to exclusively uplift small businesses so that they're seen, heard, and found, and most importantly, and connected in their local communities. Basically, trying to level the playing field and get them a competitive advantage.
So why was the KW market the first one you established yourself in?
Well, really, KW is home turf for me. I've lived and worked and volunteered in the KW market for years. It's a region packed with entrepreneurial energy and people who truly, truly respect and value shopping local and supporting Canadian. KW, without a doubt, is a community that rallies behind its small businesses and the sport organizations that do wonderful work. So launching just made totally sense in KW.
How are small business owners and local organizations able to benefit from joining the Huddle, Doug?
Well, very simple, Mike, and it's in many, many ways. First of all, it all starts by visiting our online small business directory, which is huddlemarkets.ca, huddlemarkets.ca. Most small businesses and nonprofits in the KW area are already listed, pre-populated on our directory. So really all they have to do is go in, go to the Add Your Business section, search your business. If you're on there, claim it for free. And then they get their full featured profile that they can manipulate and add and so forth. Or if they're not found, then they simply add it. And then having done that, they become huddlers.
Okay, so I've heard references to these huddlers or huddle heroes. Who, what are they?
Okay. Well, our huddlers are the small businesses and the charities and the organizations who join and benefit from the platform. They're the heartbeat of our communities. The huddle heroes, on the other hand, as important, they're the everyday locals who not only believe in, but walk the talk of shopping small, buying Canadian, and making a difference. So when you leave a review, share a listing, or choose local small business over a chain, that makes you a huddle hero.
How can a small business or a charitable organization, Doug, get involved, join in on the community huddle, become a huddle hero, support the Huddle Shop Local movement?
Okay. Well, we'd like every charity, every nonprofit, every small business to get involved. First, it's free on our directory, and they can also choose to participate in our amazing direct mail program with our Huddle Use It Wall Planner program. But long and short of it, Mike, it's quick and easy. Again, they head to huddlemarkets.ca. If you're a business owner, just simply hit the Add Your Business free tab in the top bar. Then search for your business. If you find it, again, claim it. If not, you add it. We also strongly encourage charities and nonprofits to do the same, because Huddle was built to support and champion their amazing causes and the incredible work that they do in the communities, which, we all recognize, I think, that is more needed than ever, given the circumstance in the marketplace. And if you're a local resident, when you enter the site, you'll automatically be geolocated. Take a tour around, shop local, support Canadian, start searching within your community, discover new favorites, and start supporting the businesses and organizations that make our communities so special.
I love the passion. I love the local. Doug, really appreciate you being here this morning. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the time. Let's support Huddle. Let's support communities.
Indeed, we will. Doug Damon, founder and managing director of Huddle Media Group. Look him up online, huddlemarkets.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio, Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
It is time for your daily Talkback Hour here on the show. Your opportunity to start the conversation. So whatever it is that's on your mind, get it off your mind and onto the show. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. As you heard in that update with Josh, both the federal and provincial governments are saying, oh no, the reports of Honda's shifting of production out of Ontario are greatly exaggerated. Let's hope so, because it was reported by a Japanese financial newspaper that Honda was considering, in the face of tariffs from the United States, shifting production of the CR-V and Civic vehicles to the U.S. in order, of course, to avoid those tariffs, which is exactly the plan of the implementation of the tariffs in the first place. But wait, and Jim points out via email to Mike at 570news.com, last year, $5 billion in public funds were gifted to Honda so that it could build an electric vehicle battery plant next to its existing plant in Alliston. I made reference to this earlier today. Look, let us hope that what we are hearing from the company in the wake of these reports from the other side of the world is accurate, that the company, no, these reports aren't accurate, we're not moving, we're not doing anything with our production, etc. Forgive me for being just a wee bit skeptical in that, but because business is going to operate where it is most financially viable to operate. But that would be a real blow after the billions that we publicly have invested, and don't even get me started in the whole idea of corporate welfare. Nonetheless, that might be something you want to talk about today. Something else that we talked about at the beginning of the show, the announcement from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre yesterday, which I heard from some that were concerned about this, the potential use of the notwithstanding clause to override a Superior Court decision, but I don't think it's wrong to say the Superior Court might have gotten it wrong, and this is what Pierre Poilievre is proposing.
Every life matters, and someone who takes multiple lives should be held accountable for each one. That's why I'm announcing today a Conservative government will reintroduce and pass the law that empowered judges to impose consecutive sentences for killers convicted of multiple murders. The worst mass murderers should never be allowed back on our streets. For them, a life sentence should mean what it says. A life sentence. They should only come out in a box.
And this is really in response to the man convicted of killing 6 people at a mosque in Quebec, and the Superior Court saying, sorry, but waiting 40 years for parole is too long. You should only have to wait 25 for 6 lives. Now, it doesn't mean he's getting out after 25 years, but he gets his first parole hearing then. And this has got implications right here in our community, by the way, and I'll share those with you as the hour goes on here. But I don't find that to be particularly controversial in any way. Happy to hear your thoughts on it. And hey, if anybody wants to talk about the ridiculous officiating we were subjected to at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium last night, I'm here for it, because that was terrible. Let's get to the phones. Steve, you start us off on Talkback today. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, Mike, I called you about a week and a half ago with 2 questions for you. One being, where the heck is Weebs? And 2, why are referees wearing smartwatches? And I don't know, I might have missed it if you came up with the answers.
You missed Weebs for sure. I've seen him in the flesh. He's doing great.
Is he?
Yes, he is. Okay. And why are referees wearing smartwatches? I'm afraid I don't even remember the question. That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
All right. We'll try to get the answer for you, though.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Steve. You too. I mean, we're almost like a dictionary, encyclopedia, and Google all in one. Why are referees wearing smartwatches? I mean, I would assume it's so they can count their calories, right? And their strides in their skating. But I don't know. Grant, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, so this car dealership, is that in Ingersoll?
No, General Motors, the Cami plant is in Ingersoll, and that is shutting down for a little bit, right? Or slowing production. The one we're talking about now is Honda, and there's a Japanese newspaper that's reporting Honda is going to shift production out of Canada/Ontario into the United States. But Honda says, no, we're not doing that.
Okay, but the Ingersoll one doesn't sound that good, right?
It definitely does not sound good.
And, wow. And that's the terrorists that's doing that,
Absolutely.
Correct? Oh, my goodness. I think you need to go over there with a couple of your buddies, or maybe random Zims from London.
All right. Grant wants me to take a guy in the Ontario Hockey League that's been known to chuck him once in a while, throw a few punches, and go across the border, sort things out with Donald Trump. I wonder how Donald Trump would react to me and a junior hockey player. Mark, over to you on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. The penalty box is killing the Rangers, Mike.
It is indeed.
It really is. I think they had 6 last night, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
Were they all legitimate penalties, Mike? In your opinion?
No. But some of them were definitely legitimate. Maybe 4 of the 6. I'd have to go through it all in my head. But I would not say they were all legitimate. There was one towards the end on Matt Andonovski that I thought was soft as melted butter.
Yeah, big mountain to climb there, Mike. Oh,
yeah,
my goodness.
Down 3-0, buddy.
One other thing, Mike.
Okay.
We were talking about records yesterday.
Albums, yes.
Yes. How many albums you got, Mike?
Oh, well, not on vinyl, but albums in general, about 600.
On vinyl?
No, not on vinyl.
Oh, how many vinyl do you have, Mike?
Like maybe a dozen.
Oh, that's about it, eh?
Yeah, that's about it.
You want to sell them?
I don't think so. You want to buy them?
I'd be interested.
All right. Well, Trading Post was a long time ago on this radio station, Mark, so I don't think we should get into a negotiation right here.
Okay. Can you tell me the ones you have on vinyl, Mike?
I'm not, Mark, I'm not interested in selling.
Okay, no problem. Okay, Mike, have a nice day.
Thanks, Mark. You too. Do you remember Trading Post? Please tell me you remember Trading Post too. It was Sunday mornings. It was Sunday mornings on 570 Chime back in the day. You never know what you're going to get when you open up the phone lines. Mark wants to buy the vinyl that I have, which I don't have much of. And really the only reason I bought it is because I like the album covers. And by the way, I bought it at like flea markets and stuff for 25 cents or $2. Mark, I suggest you go there. My vinyl is not for sale. My ears, however, are wide open for your usage here on the Talkback Hour today. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Hey, thanks, Clive, for the email to Mike at 570news.com. We have not yet invested in the $5 billion in Honda's plant in Allison. We have committed to invest. I hope we can exercise the out clause. Yeah? All right. If indeed Honda and the reports out of a Japanese newspaper are correct, and Honda plans to shift its production to the United States. Let's get back to the phones on our Talkback Hour. Joe, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mike. That was the most pathetically officiated game I've ever seen. And of course, it has to happen in the playoffs. Never mind the regular season. But you have to pick a pivotal playoff game to crap the bed as a referee. Burcho, should lose his job. I can't believe it. Are there no checks and balances for this kind of crap? He missed so many key calls in our end. Trips and roughing, high stick. He missed 2 high sticks that we saw. We were freaking losing it in the back 40 there in the corner behind our net. Oh man! So answer me. Can you tell me? Is there some sort of oversight that can prevent this from happening again?
Well, yes, there is oversight, but no, I don't think it can prevent it from happening again because Darcy Birchall is one of the most tenured referees in the Ontario Hockey League. He constantly gets feedback through this oversight process, and sadly, we were still subjected to what we were subjected to last night.
He was brutal.
He was.
Oh, my God. And Rangers aren't doing themselves any favors. They look porous in their zone. And Parsons is not playing his best, is he?
We've seen him play better, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's looking pretty grim. We'll see you Wednesday.
All right, Joseph, thanks for the call. I'll remind you that back in 2010, same two teams, same situation in the playoffs, except it was the Rangers leading 3-0. And then Windsor came back and won the next 4. So we could rewrite that script with a different team staging the 4-game comeback, which I would love to be a part of. But boy, oh boy, it's tough. And listen, the Rangers lost 6-3 last night with an empty netter. Did the officiating make a difference? Did it impact the game? Probably not. But it was definitely poor. And a missed call that should have been at minimum interference against Windsor led directly to Windsor's second goal to put them up 2-0. So I don't know. I got a kick out of what assistant coach Brad Flynn of the Kitchener Rangers had to say after the game, though. Windsor got 6 power plays in that game last night, including a 5-on-3 in the first period. 6 power plays. A 5-on-3 in the first, during which they scored to go up 1-0 and start the scoring. Kitchener had 1 13-second power play. That's it. 13 seconds of power play time for the Kitchener Rangers. And assistant coach Brad Flynn was curious about this.
Most referees in the 3 CHL leagues that I've been in, they come over and they'll talk to their head coach and let them know what the calls are. And typically, especially in the playoff games, you never see this many penalties, especially so lopsided. I'm not sure if they just came from the cathedral over there and they're a bunch of altar boys and they don't do anything.
The Windsor Spitfires, bunch of altar boys, just came over from the cathedral. They don't do anything wrong. They certainly didn't last night in the eyes of the officials. Don't forget Drew Jackson was on the ice as a referee last night, too. Tisk, tisk, Mr. Jackson, who's somehow, some way got roots here in the region. Andre, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Well, some way, somehow, I think in my heart we should redo that game.
You can't redo it. Hey, by the way, Andre, you've said before, like you are visually impaired, right?
95%, yes.
95%. You would have done a better job refereeing last night than those two knuckleheads.
Oh, that's a kind of a good joke. No.
Okay, that's a bad joke. Sorry.
A bad joke. But no. We can't be like that with the referees because they do their job. They do their best. Yes, to me, I got another point after, so don't hang up, Mike. To me, that was a sold out. The first penalty. The first goal pretty much threw everybody over, but I know with UC Okus, he's got his guys. He knows how to do it. It's just, to me, that game, man, oh man. You know what I mean? But you know what?
No, I don't. I don't know what you. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your other point?
What did you say, Mike?
What's your other point, Andre? You said you had 2 points. You didn't want me to hang up on you.
Yeah. Well, about my magic jackrabbit polka dot that I really like.
What is your magic jackrabbit polka dot?
Poiliev.
I beg your pardon?
Poiliev means that in English. That's his name.
Poiliev means jackrabbit polka dot?
He's magic. But anyway, the thing that I'm saying about him is that I always knew months ago when he brought up harder sanctions, Joe would love me on that, about drink and driving especially. That's a murder. It's a loaded gun. And if he's going to do something like that, yes, a murder should be a murder, because I have a best friend that is in jail 30 years now. He will never see the street because he did a bank robbery. He killed a cop, and he told me he doesn't. Life is not life. He doesn't want to see it. So he knows that's his house. So Poiliev is very right on sanction. But I also want to put in there drink and driving, because I have a lot of friends who are crippled, paralyzed, or life is destroyed because of that reason. So if they're going to siphon penalties, please do also other things. Go Rangers, and you can do it.
All right, Andre. I love how Andre wanted me to wait before I hung up on him so he can make another point. And he talks about Magic, Jackrabbit, Polka Dot. If you want me to stick around for another point, I hope your next point makes more sense than Magic, Jackrabbit, Polka Dot. Maybe I expect too much sometimes. It's the Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour is your chance to do just that. Talk back. Get it off your mind onto the show. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. George, good afternoon.
Yeah, Mike, listening to Andre there, I thought it was back in the 70s with a Jefferson Airplane song.
Exactly.
The magic dot and rabbit or what. I thought he was going to break into a Jefferson Airplane song. Mike, I wanted to ask you, do the members of Kitchener Rangers, do they listen to you during the day?
You mean like the coaching staff and stuff, or anybody from the office?
Because I got a message for them.
Okay.
The message is, this is a team that could come back from 3 games down. I believe in them. They're great players. If they can just win the one, I really believe they can climb back.
George, I love it. I hope it goes right to the ears over at 1963 Eugene George Way. I believe in the team as well. They picked a rotten time for a 3-game skid. The first one they've had all year. But it's definitely not over. And if you win the next one, then all of a sudden you've got Mo on your side, as in momentum. So I hope somebody over in the front office is listening and knows that George is behind the team. And I know lots of fans are still behind the Kitchener Rangers as well. It's just been a tough week for the team since starting the playoff series last Thursday in Windsor. Tomorrow night, the Rangers are playing for their playoff lives. And of course, you're going to hear the game right here on 570 News Radio, your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. Fixie and I will be there. We'll bring you all the action, but we'd even love even more if you were in the building with us. So let's get out, support the boys tomorrow night. Our Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. It's a busy day on the Talkback Hour. Let's get right back to the phones. Jason, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Just want to say that I'm a die-hard Rangers fan. We even went down to the game in Windsor on Saturday night. We enjoyed ourselves. And, after last night's game, I got to say the crew that did Saturday night's game did a fantastic job. They kept everything in order really well and called a nice even game, I thought. And then you got last night's game, and I'm getting ready to head out the door to head to the game, and I take a look at our officiating team for the night, and I saw Burchell on the list. So I reached into my closet, and I grabbed my referee jersey, and on the front of it, it says Blind Zebras, and on the back it says Bad Call, because I knew we were in for a bunch of bad calls last night. And sure enough, I get to the rink, and I must have heard at least 6 or 7 fans, hey, you should get out there. You could do a better job than this guy here. And you know what? I've been following the Rangers a long time. I go back to the early days of the 90s and even late 80s, and I can think of another character that falls from the same tree. Mr. Brad Beers falls from that same tree that Mr. Burchell falls from, and so I thought it was funny. I thought maybe I'll do a little bit of research to see where Mr. Beers is these days. And sure enough, if you pull up the OHL website, he's right on the top of the list for OHL referee managers. So it doesn't lead me astray to know who the hiring managers are and why we get these officials that we do currently. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Jason, I know I'm not going to make you feel any better than you currently feel, but what if I were to tell you that the playoff series that Brad Beer is managing right now is the Rangers Spitfires series?
Well, then it doesn't surprise me. 100%. I know exactly why the calls are going the way they're going. Then you got to give me a shake. Mike, it's they always say one bad call can't make a game, but it's not just one. It's several bad calls, and hey, when you start to look into things, and you kind of start to put some pieces of the puzzle together and understand why things are the way they are. Not to knock the OHL fishing crew. I think we have, for the most part, we have a decent crew. There's a few like minds that I think would agree that there should be some replacements in some of these orange bands, anyways.
It was definitely tough last night. There's no two ways about it. On a lighter note, by any chance, were you sitting on either one of the ends? I think I saw referee jerseys on both ends behind the nets.
I was sitting on the ends, right behind the Zamboni door.
Okay. Yeah, I
was actually going to holler out to Fixie and see if he could take my jersey down to Burchell and get him to autograph it. I figured someday maybe it might be worth something. Having all those bad calls, it definitely stands out pretty clear.
Well, good job by you wearing that to the game, and let's support the boys tomorrow night in Game 4.
Absolutely. Let's get it done tomorrow night.
Thanks, Jason. Great to hear from you. I saw you. I picked you out of that crowd in your referee's jersey. I love it. Jim, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I got a bit of a rant, and it's nothing to do with today's show, but I just wanted to have a shout-out for the KW Titans. I want to congratulate David and Kate. They're working their butts off to put on a great show. It's a professional league, and I was surprised as heck because I was going to phone yesterday and I couldn't. Today I opened up the record, and sure enough, there's a picture from last game, and they did mention tonight's game. It's Game 5. It's all on the line tonight in Windsor. I just don't think they get enough local coverage. I know in the past, like at the start of the year, you had guys on and you had David on and all that, and I'm not by no means blaming you, but I just, there's been nothing in the record. Like last year even, Mark Bryson did a few feature articles on guys and stuff like that, but there just doesn't seem to be that, media thing. There's social media, there's Instagram that they're on and all that, and they're trying so hard. And this year, I've been helping with in the past. Crowds have been pretty good this year. There's a lot pushing 15 or over 15. Sunday was a little disappointing. There was just over 800. But I just don't think for a professional league that they're getting enough local coverage. And that was just a beef I had that I wanted to express.
And you know what? I'm glad you did, Jim. I appreciate it, and we're going to keep doing our best, and we're certainly going to cheer on those Titans tonight.
Well, the scores are on and stuff like that, but to me, when I'm at the game, it's a whole different crowd than the Ranger crowd, and to reach out to them and to get them come, and there's a lot of young kids that come, and it's probably through all the different basketball leagues with the Y and the and all that. But no, I just wanted to make people aware that tonight's a big game, and who knows, they could win and get in the final.
They certainly could. Again, appreciate that call. And listen, there's lots to unpack from that. I mean, media resources being what they are today. The KW Titans in their 8th year of existence have a long way to go to catch up to the 60-plus years of the Kitchener Rangers. You have to remember also that they do get included in our sportscasts, scores, etc. The broadcasts of Kitchener Rangers games, that's a partnership between the station and the team, and it benefits both parties. So it's not as though, the KW Titans have some streaming service, the Basketball Super League does. It's similar with the Kitchener Panthers, which David Schooley and his Waterloo Region sports and entertainment team co-own and operate now. But the Panthers, too, just stream games. They don't have an over-the-air broadcast partner, at least not that I'm aware of. So there are myriad challenges. Again, we could spend the rest of the afternoon unpacking this, but I will also just add, because we are the official broadcast partner of the Kitchener Rangers, we have the Coaches Show every Friday morning here on the program. And when the Rangers season is over, that spot is going to be turned over to the Waterloo Region Sports and Entertainment Group, a.k.a. David Schooley, Sam Shirani, and the group that is now with Waterloo Region Sports and Entertainment. And we'll keep you up to date on Panthers and Titans and all of those other things until the next hockey season, just so that you're aware of the other pro teams in the community. Let's get another one in before the break. Daryl, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Just to talk about this reffing thing last night, and I don't know. I'm not big on, coming down on them, but I've had, with our family, we've probably had season tickets for maybe 40 years. And is there no reason why they can't take the East refs for regular season and mix them into the West playoffs? Because I'm sure these refs are sick of also getting harped on by the coaches, players, and in minor hockey, I've been out of it for a while, but, OMHA playoffs, you could not have refs from that town. They had to be out-of-town refs, and at this level, does this have to be a difference, right? This is crazy. I walk in, into our seats, and everybody knows that Darcy's reffing again. And it's just like a moan and groan. So just wanted to ask you about what you thought about that.
Thanks, Daryl. I appreciate the call, and I love the passion. And I'm with you. You don't want to make as big an issue of it as it's become. But frankly, the performance by the officials last night make it the issue that it is today. They were awful, just bluntly. And I say that as somebody that works in an industry where you can tell me after any show, Farwell, that was awful, and I have to accept that. It was awful last night, their performance. Anyway, to Daryl's point, here's one of the things that frustrates me the most. East refs, West refs, whatever. We're down to 4 playoff series. 4. We're supposed to be getting the best of the best, the best of the best. And if that was an example of 2 of the best referees the league has to offer up right now, eesh is all I can say about that. It's Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Busy Talkback Hour. Kyle, you're next. Good afternoon.
How are you feeling?
I'm all right. I'm bummed. I'm bummed from last night, buddy. I'm bummed.
I know.
Yeah.
I know you are.
I know you know.
How do we finish last year?
Same spot.
So we just got to keep on improving. And,
but improving would mean getting out of the second round.
I know. But you know what, though? Like you said last night, there's a love story. This could happen tomorrow.
It's going to be great.
You know what? We got the best fans, I think, in the league, for sure. We got the best fans. We got the best organization. The way we all come together as one big family. I love the passion of everybody. And you know what? There's nothing better when you do your play-by-play, Mike, and you could hear the fans in the background yelling and screaming how much they love the Rangers and how passionate the 7,000 referees who got in the building is amazing. So you know what? Just remember, tomorrow, new game, fresh start. Let's not remember the last 3 games that we've had. Let's just have fun and enjoy what we got in our backyard. Thanks a lot, Mike, and cheer up, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I hope you could hear then those 6,400 last night chanting, "Ref, you suck," multiple times.
Yeah.
Deservedly so. Christine, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I have to agree with him on the reffing last night. It sucked.
It did. It was terrible.
And you could hear it I could hear it on the TV. Oh, my gosh. I was like, what a stupid call. Why didn't he call that?
Fans were fired up, Christine.
I was fired up, too. And I'm like, oh. But how about that weather?
How about that weather?
It goes from nice to cold to nice. Does Mother Nature not know it's spring?
I agree with you, Christine. Don't even get me started on something else that's got me vexed right now. But my buddy from Environment Canada sent me a message earlier today. He said, it looks like low 20s on April the 26th. I said, I don't care. I want sunny and 25 minimum tomorrow. I'm through with this nonsense. Goodness gracious me. Ibrahim, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. Just I would like to comment the first topic you have after 9:30 about
Canada's aging population.
Yeah. You was mentioning, we have to fill up with immigration.
I didn't say that. I said that's one of the reasons, one of the arguments in favor.
We need it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm not disputing that, Mike.
Okay.
But what I'm saying, immigrant, I can myself even by very young age, but immigrant also, they get old and their children also becoming here the same like children are here. So why we don't try other option is like, I don't know if you are familiar with Hungarian policy a couple of years ago.
No. What, do they want to pay people to have babies?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
No, that is incentivizing the people, if you want to have children, like, for example, if you have the first children, the first child, 30 years, the tax-free. If you have 3 children, they want, they want to encourage instead of, they say, we have low birth rate in Hungary now. They say, so what is the solution? Instead of trying from outside, then try to domestically to incentivize people who want to have the children.
Sure, yeah. That's an option, yeah.
Yeah, here, for example, you see how many young families, they want to make family, but the rent is unaffordable. Buying a house is even no way. So many, they can't have a family. So why we should encourage people here also who want to have 1 or 2 child. So also one of the solution,
Yeah, listen, I hear you, and it goes back to what our guest said. And Ibrahim, you're right. Like, the aging population is interconnected with so many other things. Oh, we're not having children because we can't afford to, because it's too expensive to live around here, and it just goes on from there. But it has been, I think, and that's why we had the topic on the show, the unspoken issue at the ballot box, Canada's aging population. In 15 years, 25% of Canadians by 2040 will be over the age of 65. That's a lot of older people to deal with. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 12 o'clock Talkback, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Final minutes together today before we turn things over to Rob Snow. And now back to the phones on our Talkback Hour. Ryan, good afternoon.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I was hoping it would be you. I'm great. How are you?
I'm living a dream, pal. You saw the game last night. Obviously, you saw the game last night. What did you think?
What did I think?
Of the first period. Were the boys looking good, like they were going to pull off a W?
Oh, gosh, yeah. The first 10 minutes, they looked great. Joey Costanzo made a monster save, though, in the Windsor goal, and that was a big moment early on.
These teams are so evenly matched. But what's the goon from Flint there that took out 2 of our boys right at the end there?
Clattenburg.
Clattenburg?
Yeah,
Clattenburg. I mean, hey, that's a part of the game. I get it, but it sucks because I forget who got knocked out, but they were pretty key players. And I wanted to ask you, what's the morale of the team right now? Can we pull off a win?
Of course we can. 100% we can. 100%.
I know it's the optimism, buddy, but you see the morale. Is the morale there? Are the boys still feeling the
100%. Promise you.
That's so good to hear.
Yep.
My liver is taking a beating every time they advance to the next round, but that's okay. Go boys in blue, eh? Let's go.
I love it. Let's go. And my liver's right there with you. It was a school night, and I still had my beverage when I got home because that's how I post-game. Uncle Rob, good afternoon.
Rosie, thought I'd call in, give a little update on the Kitchener Kid. So they're just entering into their own playoffs. The Iowa Heartlanders, for the first time in their short career, made the playoffs after being perennial basement dwellers for the past 3 years.
Well, it's because they got Soppy on the team.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so they're playing the Fort Wayne Comets starting April 18th. But he's been playing with a little adversity. Took a little stick to the schnoz about a week ago, and he's had the full cage on. So,
oh, boy. Did the refs actually call it, though? Because that didn't happen in Kitchener last night.
You know what? There was no call.
Wow. It's a plague, Rob.
So I think his mom's a little distressed because that's her baby boy. Right?
I get it. She'll get over it. It's a hockey player. He's got to have some scars.
He's got to have a few scars.
That's right.
I agree.
That's right.
He's been playing with the full shield. But anyway, so they start on the 18th. So I thought I'd just call in and maybe switch it up for you a little bit, Mike, with some other news.
Appreciate it, Rob. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. Stay well. I'm going to try to squeeze in this last one. Mark, I got like 30 seconds hard.
Okay, just really quick. I won't get into hockey. Everybody said it. After I was reading the newspaper, and they had some wrestling on from somewhere. Where was it from?
I do not get myself involved in wrestling. Can't help you. Sorry.
Well, it's amateur wrestling, and it was the funniest thing that I've ever seen since the Three Stooges.
Well, that sums up wrestling, at least from where I'm sitting. Quite frankly, that sums up UFC to me. I'm not into that stuff at all. Good old sweet science of boxing back in the day. Oh, I miss me some Sugar Ray Leonard. Did I just go down a memory lane on a little trip? Yes, I did. That's what I do. Stream of consciousness, off on a tangent. I'm off tomorrow. Larry Fedoruk is in. I'll talk to you Thursday, but I will be at that game tomorrow night. Don't you think I'm missing that hockey game? My name's Mike Farwell. Bye for now.